Hello there. How low can you go? Now, sorry for invoking a phrase that you would usually hear from normal people during their gatherings of being drunk, loud, and obnoxious, commonly known as parties, but there's a context here. A few weeks ago, I had rather heated discussion on MTBR forums of the usefulness of lower gearing on a mountain bike. You see, for the last few years, I've been using continuously higher lowest gear on my mountain bike in order to get the shortest possible cage and thus avoid all the obstacles of the trail. However, maybe I've gotten a little too, just say, fanatical when it comes to that particular issue, and I've gone too much in the direction of having ground clearance. In effect, hear that? That's what I'm talking about, normal people being loud. Anyway, in effect, for the last few years I've been riding with 35-21 front rings and 12 to 28 or 12 to 30 rear. And I've gotten used to it. However, maybe I've been wrong, so today I'm going to make an experiment. You see, this is my cube. I hope you can see it. This is the mountain, somewhere there. I intend to ascend today, which should take me about 2 hours tops, maybe 1.5. I don't know. I don't know the terrain really precisely, so I don't know the trail. And what I did is that I took the Shimano Z I usually use on this bike and I mounted 1142 cassette and XT 8000 series rear derailleur. So I'm going to check whether the low gear of 21 by 42, which is obscenely low, whether I'm going to get some use out of it. So, well, it certainly isn't helping now, but you know, they say that if you haven't pushed your bike uphill, you haven't been doing enduro correctly, so I think I'm doing enduro just right because it's too steep. Alright, 20 minutes have passed and I'm still pushing. So far the steepness of the mountain has overcome all the benefits I could have gotten from lower gearing. So whenever I try to use the 2142, I just stall. So I've gotten approximately, I don't know, 50 meters of ride time so far. If you're interested, and if you're not, skip the spot. Find the end. Anyway, if you're interested, I'm currently riding in Silesian Beskid, which is considered the McDonald's of mountain riding in the land of Po. And approximately 80% of trails over here are this kind of trail, which is essentially a half pipe filled with a very thick gravel, and a good deal of those are extremely eroded. So if you're not content with riding bike parks, and we have 3 over here, then you have to deal with something like this. This isn't really bad because once you get past the hard part you get, well, quite challenging terrain to ride down, but it's kind of annoying when you're going up. Now of course each mountain range in the region has its own 2 or 3 trails that are rideable tarmac to top, but as you can imagine it quickly gets boring because after you ride something for the umpteenth time, well, you always end up with the same place, so you have the same options. So if you like to roam the mountains, then you have to contend with these, at least in these mountains. Okay, I think I'm somewhere where I can ride up, so I think it's a good time to present you the bike and the man. Well, here's the man. Here is the man. Now the bike. The bike is a 2014 Cube Fritz, my free ride machine. The front is 2135. The rear here is a Shimano Dior XT 8000 GS, medium cage. On the cassette is a 10-speed Sunrace MS3 all steel. And so far I've gotten a total of 20 meters out of it because it was so steep I just couldn't I just couldn't keep balance. And I'm sweaty, as you could imagine. Alright. I'm making the sick montage. I don't know why you want those things, I guess it's just to kill time. Oh, there you go. Alright, I'm done with the pushing. Now I'm going to traverse this trail, which is behind me, as you can see. I hope the sun doesn't outshine anything. Anyway, I'm gonna be traversing, so no use for low gears anyway. But so far, 2142 was pretty useless. Useless because even if I was able to get some sort of tempo where I could ride it, any obstacle I would need to navigate would drop me out of it, or I would drop to speeds which would make it impossible to keep myself balanced. 2136 is already pretty bad at that, but 2142 is downright horrible. Okay, now I'm 2/3 in, currently starting an uphill here on a single track. And so far the 2136 and 2142 were more of a trouble than a benefit. Even if the trail got sufficiently steep to warrant using such a low gear, it was also technical enough to make it difficult to manage your inertia using this very low gear. So I tried to keep 2132 as the lowest I could possibly use. There is a case to be made to ride this low gear when the trail was smooth and relaxing, just steep, and there were a few sections that was the case, so then I got some use out of it, but overall I can't say it is very useful. It's just, well, we'll see how the rest of the trip goes. Well, riding this trail up was probably an overstatement because I'm gonna be pushing it. Because you see, there are no epic single trail uphills in these mountains. There's either balls to the wall, downhill sections, or fire roads. So unfortunately, when it comes to the good stuff, you mean the single track downhills, which are balls to the wall, the good stuff lasts, I don't know, 100 meters, 200 meters most of the time. There are 2 or 3 worthy natural trails. Other than that, it's just fire roads and fire roads everywhere. Although sometimes something like this can be found. And I think I'm going to change my plans for today. I'm going to write this down once I get to that mountain. There. I was talking to you from there. I'm going to return there to finish my thought. Okay, I'm back. That mountain was a little bit too crowded for my autism to be comfortably talking to an electronic device. Anyhow, I'm back where I recorded the clip previously. It's 2 hours later, an hour later. The phone now complains that it's out of power. Whatever. So there are two more things I have to add to the entire experience. I found a particular type of terrain where the 2142 was actually quite comfortable because it was smooth uphill, so I could just, it was fairly steep of course, and so I could just push the very low gear and comfortably actually rest a bit. So I guess that's some niche use for such a low gear. But overall I've been using more of the 3542 gear, which is complete cross chaining of the drivetrain, and I found that gear much more useful. Anyhow, I think I'm going to wrap this up, at least during the trip. I would probably do a follow-up in the workshop. So for now, at least where I'm sitting here, low gears, I keep to my point which I made on the MTBR forums. There is a little bit of a cult of cargo when it comes to low gears. There simply are there is simply a gear that is too low for each rider. Obviously people are different, so some people are going to find even the ridiculously low 2142 or equivalent useful. I don't, and I'm fairly sure that most people has similar experience. Although, you know, people come in different shapes and sizes, obviously, and everyone's terrain is different. Not anyone is riding in endless staircases. My trails tend to be, so they might get away with using lower gears because they don't have momentum to preserve or to regain during uphilling or something like that. Anyhow, I'm quite tired. There's a long downhill section from now, so signing off. Alright, so I'm back at the workshop. A few days have passed. This is 4 days after my trip. Anyway, I took off the cassette, I took off the derailleur, and what are my thoughts about that? Well, you can see that the derailleur here has quite a few new scratches, which weren't there before the trip. But what are my conclusions? Let's start with the fact that I need better tires because I caught enough pinch flats to make me walk the entire section of downhill, and I was almost the last stretch of the trip, but that's not really relevant to the subject. Now, can I use something as low as 2142? Yes, I can, but it requires fairly specific trail conditions, and those trail conditions are smooth and steep. That doesn't really happen, at least on the mountains I usually ride. So, I obviously returned to my preferred setup, which is 1132 in this particular case. However, what are the wider conclusions? I'm going to stick to my guns and say that there is a little bit of a placebo effect when it comes to lower gearing when in the context of a mountain bicycle, because obviously people come in different shapes and sizes. Some spin, some don't, some have better sense of balance, some don't. But in essence, there is a certain point where gearing becomes so low that it's difficult to effectively use it, even if on the first glance the terrain you're riding through should support such gearing. In my particular case, all the difficult uphill sections, which would fit the very low gearing, at least at a glance, turned out to be technical enough that I needed to use a higher and harder gearing. In the discussion of MTBR, I pointed out that in order to climb an incline of something percent at a speed of whatever, you need to produce power of X, and this power is essentially constant. This is basic physics. If you're going up, you need to gain potential energy, and the speed is the rate at which you're gaining this energy. Obviously, if the power requirement is above your functional threshold power, at a certain point you're going to be simply defeated by the mountain, and in order to compensate for that, you have to ride slower. However, when you ride slower, you need lower gearing, because lower gearing allows you to keep your cadence constant. However, there is a certain speed which you simply can't go run any slower, which makes it difficult for you to keep your balance. So there is a limit of how slow you can go on at least on a two-wheel bicycle. Now, this problem is exacerbated when you're riding over technical terrain, such as that I dealt on my trip. In essence, when riding on such a terrain, you are not only gaining elevation, thus producing power to gain that elevation, which allows you to slow down to arbitrary low speed, and as long as you can keep your balance, you can go up. But also, you need to be able to keep the momentum of spinning the pedals, because if you're not able to do that, at a certain point the features you're grinding through are going to simply stop you, because you need to produce bursts of power that allows you to go through the obstacle. That, in essence, requires you to use higher gearing that you would otherwise expect from just steepness of the terrain alone. Considering what you're riding through, you will be faced at some point with an obstacle or a series of obstacles or a trail or an uphill that's going to be too difficult to ride through at your current power level, and you're simply well, forced to push, because you can't lower your gearing anymore, because lowering your gearing makes it impossible to keep your momentum. Unless, of course, you can track stand for hours, but, well, unless you're, I don't know, called Danny McCaskill, you probably can't do that. Anyhow, this is all I have to say. See you on the next one. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe to the channel. And I screwed the thingy with... Alright, so share, like, subscribe, and thank you for your undivided attention.